All right, so Brian Cashman spoke at about 11 o'clock this morning in Tampa, Florida, before the Yankees game against the Twins, which you could watch on Yes or on ESPN right now with Garrett Cole starting. And we'll get into the lineup that they're rolling out there in just a moment. But he spoke about Giancarlo Stanton and Stanton's absence. And the Yankee GM was asked about his timeline for his right-handed slugger.
So ultimately, he was dealing with it in the end of last year, and obviously thought we were in a good place. And I think he was feeling like in a good place, but then it reared its ugly head, about 3 weeks before camp, and is my understanding. And so now we're dealing with it. So give it the time it needs, and clearly look forward to getting him back at some point. But obviously, in the near term, that won't be the case.
All right, now, the thing that stands out to you is it bothered him last year, and then he stopped all activity, obviously, when the season ended, and then it felt okay. And then when he tried to start activity again, it didn't feel great. Surgery does correct this problem, but it's usually a 3-month recovery. And you wonder why it wasn't done. I mean, to sit back and go, there was no pain after the World Series. Okay, there was no action either. And Brian was asked, was surgery considered for Stanton?
It'd be a last resort. I can't rule out a surgery, but I know it's not recommended in the front end of this thing. But obviously, if you have a number of different failed attempts, then you start looking at different ways of intervention.
Well, what we found out during the year, or what we found out recently, is that this bothered him all throughout the season last year. All throughout the season. And the pain was very, very high. These are what the Yankees are telling us. So they obviously were rehabbing it, and it didn't get better. The guy was playing through extraordinary pain and had an extraordinary postseason. And you do wonder why not having surgery during the winter was, in fact, a viable option. And I know what Brian's saying, it's the last resort, but again, he was bothered all throughout the season. High pain was the phrase that's used. And it was never thought of to have the surgery. Now, he's had the PRP injection. And what that is they take the blood, they spin it, they cleanse it, whatever the case. I'm being very parochial with it. And then they inject it back into your body. And it's supposed to speed up healing. Brian said that Cashman is going to have that Stanton's going to have a second PRP injection. And he was asked, will that allow him to play without pain?
I don't know. I mean, obviously the PRP injections are designed to help the healing process, and you hope that's the case, but you just have to let it all. A, you have to let it take, and B, you have to let it play out, and then hopefully you get a positive resolution to it. In most of things, you're dealing with, unless it's like a hamstring or stuff like that, it's just you're in a little bit of the unknown, and you're trying to treat everything conservatively, and you hope for the best, but you have to give it the time to play out first until you know where you're sitting. So.
Now, Cashman was finally asked, because Stanton has been in New York this whole time, dealing with a personal matter, which nobody is revealing, and I guess nobody has to reveal, but you hope that doesn't become an issue as well, whatever the personal issue is. And Cashman was asked, will Stanton be back here tomorrow?
I think he'll travel back to Tampa. Whether he's here by tomorrow to be in front of you guys or not, that remains to be seen. I know we're going to the East Coast, but he's heading back to Tampa. He'll be here this weekend. What the travel schedule for him is, I don't know. It's not like he can do much anyway. So,
well, let's really talk turkey here. This is a significant loss for the Yankees because when you're trying to read the tea leaves, I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. I mean, we're March 6th. The season's starting on March 27th. So there's not time for him to be ready. And the first PRP injection obviously didn't really do that much because that's why there's a second one that he's getting today. And this is in both elbows, by the way. Both. Now, the ramp up in spring training for a hitter is usually about 4 weeks. So the way it seems right now, I don't think he's swinging the bat anytime soon. Anytime soon. So I think conservatively, and this is just me guessing, he's going to miss about 2 months of the season if all goes well. And if you don't think that's significant, then you're really not looking at the lay of the land with the Yankees. Because the one thing that this team is lacking is a right-handed bat. And Stanton is that right-handed bat. Stanton is also the guy that was going to provide protection for Judge and pick up some of the slack of Juan Soto not being here and being across the river in Queens. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. And the Yankees are kind of caught betwixt and between when it comes to Stanton, because if you go out, and I'm just throwing this name out there, you go out there and get J.D. Martinez, and then Stanton comes back middle of May, end of May. What are you going to do with J.D. Martinez and Giancarlo Stanton on the same team? They're both DHs. That's untenable. It's unworkable. So you're kind of landlocked. What do? You can't have them both. So the ideal thing is to pick up a big-time right-handed hitter who also can play the field. Is that guy Nolan Arenado? I have no idea. Again, I'm not quite sure they're going to go there. I'm not quite sure that the Cardinals would pick up enough of the salary for them to go there. And I don't even know if that's the true answer, because I don't know if Nolan Arenado is going to be a kind of damage guy that Stanton is going to be. You always, when you try to handicap the Yankees, and Stanton's a part of the team, what you try to do is you try to figure out, well, when is he going to miss time? How long is it going to be? And so what you do is you think that Giancarlo is going to suffer at some point a lower body muscle injury, hamstring, quad, calf, something like that. It happens every year. He's had one injury-free year, essentially, with the Yankees. That was his first one in 2018. I think he played 158 games. Can you imagine? So you kind of plug that in somewhere in the middle of the season. And maybe you can absorb it better at that time because you could get the lay of the land. This is right smack dab in the beginning of the season. And once you get through this, if you get through this, he's still going to suffer that lower body injury, isn't he? You're looking at a season now that if somebody said to you, over under 90 games played, you're going under. Because if he misses 2 months, and you essentially give a team about 30 games a month, I mean, that's rounding up. So let's say 25 a month. So he's going to miss 50 right at the start. Right at the start, missing 50. That's before the annual lower body injury. You can't just slough this off if you're the Yankees or if you're a Yankee fan. And that's why I said this a couple of weeks back. And I'm a Giancarlo Stanton fan. I don't know, in my time covering sports in New York, which is over 40 years now, that I've ever seen a guy handle what New York is about better than Giancarlo. He's been booed, never strikes at the fans, never says the wrong thing. When he gets booed, he says, I'd boo too. I understand why they boo. He does everything right when it comes to that. But if you could undo this trade, it's become an albatross for the Yankees. It was not a good trade in retrospect. Now, we can't sit here and be geniuses and try to be smarter than Brian Cashman and say that we too would not have made that deal. Because the player that was acquired had just hit 59 home runs and won the MVP. Of course you make that deal. Of course you do. But if you could have a do-over, you don't. And I know what everybody's sitting there thinking as they're either listening on their app or on 880. They're thinking, well, look how great he is in the postseason. Yeah, he is. Have they won a title with him? As great as he's been. Now, it hasn't been, they have not won they haven't not won a title because of him. And he's given them a chance to win a title, but they haven't. That's why Giancarlo Stanton has been a net loss for them. It's tied up money that could have been spent elsewhere. It's tied up the DH spot because he's a one-dimensional player. He's not the player they acquired. That's why you can't rip the Yankees for acquiring him. It was a steal at the time. Try to bring yourself back to that time and go, wow, they got the reigning National League MVP who just hit 59 home runs. How could you not do it? This was an outfielder. He didn't DH. There was no DH in the National League. This was a player, a physical specimen. And he was that guy in 2018, the first year the Yankees got him. Now, he is a one-dimensional guy who still has years left on his contract, tying up money that the Yankees could spend elsewhere to plug that hole and make their team more versatile. Use that DH spot to give people a rest instead of tying it up. And also, when you have Giancarlo on your team, what you in fact are doing is you're tying yourself in knots. Because you can't get a like player because he might come back. And you can't get a like player because you have the money tied up in him. So he's an all or nothing player right now. And you have him for 3 more years. It's an albatross. And again, I hate saying it because I like the guy. He's a gentleman, and when he's healthy, he's still a force. But he can't run. He can't play the field. He just can't. That's why you'll never hear me rip him doing games on yes when he's jogging to first base. He cannot run.